Guys, welcome to the first edition of the Portals and Pathways podcast here on Facebook and YouTube. I am your host, Brady Goebel. And as you see, you are here in my new platform right here on StreamYard, where I'm going to be coming weekly on Saturdays to you guys live on Facebook and YouTube. It'll be at 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern, with the next day Spotify release. Now, today, I have three sponsors that are a big part of kicking this all off. I have Julie Jo Larson. She's an author here in Brainerd, Minnesota. I'm going to be bringing her up later on in the episode. I have Hawk Horvath. She's also a psychic medium, paranormal investigator, speaker here across the state. She's very vital to the paranormal community, and I will be speaking on her as well. And we also have solitary specter hunter, Diana Atkinson. She is an awesome person. She's a dear friend of mine, and I'm so excited to talk about all three of these people throughout the podcast. So I'm going to kick it off right, guys. I'm going to be opening up right now for the first time my table of discussion to our guest tonight, Ray Causey. Welcome in, Ray. Here he is. How you doing?
Hey, what's up? How you doing, man? I'm good.
Hey, it's so nice for you to come on here to be the first guest. We've chatted for years since I've kicked off about 5 years ago. You've always just chatted on and off with me when you were with Searchers and during 28 Days Haunted. It's so cool to finally chat for the first time face to face on my new podcast, man. It's so cool,
dude. I'm so honored to be. I'm so honored to be the first guest, man. I'm glad you asked me to do this. This is awesome. I'm excited.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna kick it off right. So what got you into the paranormal, Ray? What piqued your interest in becoming an investigator back in the day?
So for me, like when I was super young, I used to sleep in the living room at my at the house I lived at, and I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and I had a bird. I had like a pet canary, and I saw like an apparition behind the bird cage that looked like it was trying to speak to me, and it just scared the holy hell out of me. So I immediately closed my eyes, covered myself with with a blanket, and when I woke up the next morning, the bird was dead at the bottom of the cage. And I was like, I was freaking out. And so as I got older, I started thinking back on that, like, what was that trying to tell me? And, why did my bird die? And so it really kind of started my journey. And after that, I just kind of always had an interest in the paranormal.
Awesome, man. What was the first piece of gear that you invested in? Like an audio recorder?
Yeah. It was actually like a tape recorder, like one of the old ones with the little like cassette deck tapes, like the real small ones. It was one of those, man. And I used to just, everywhere I'd go, I'd carry that thing around and hit record and just kind of hope that I would find something. I wouldn't even really ask questions. I would just kind of press record and let it like record throughout the whole night. And then I would go back and just listen to it the next day just to kind of relive that experience and see if I could find anything.
Yeah, dude. I got a Zoom H1N, like a little Zoom recorder, as my first device in my SB7 that I use for chasing paranormal. Yeah. Look at this, dude. I got this from Horn Paranormal. Searchers.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's all. Dude, I don't even have any of that stuff anymore. That's what's funny.
Really? Dude, that is such a good device, man. It works so well.
I was super excited when we got all that stuff, man. They made us some solid equipment. It was amazing.
Dude, Scott, I've reached out to Scott since the beginning of like their run. And when they released the Searchers, I'm like, I always like Shane, Josh, and you guys, man. I remember you doing the Estes method in one of your guys' YouTube episodes. You're sitting in the chair there, and I'm like, dude, that place was eerie. Where was that at?
Yeah, that was Sweet Springs Sanitarium up in West Virginia, man. It was a huge place.
Dude, and West Virginia is beautiful too.
Dude, the crazy thing is like that whole night this like a 50,000 square foot like sanitarium, and we didn't even scratch the surface, man, because we were kind of scared to get lost, because it was like there was a lot of ground to cover and there was only like a few signs to kind of point you where you were going. And so we kind of just stayed in a couple of areas just to make sure we knew where we were going. Plus, like I had made everybody watch that movie Grave Encounters right before we went there, so they were all kind of like, a little hesitant because they thought that this might be the one that takes us out.
Yeah, man. No, that was the same with me at like Edinburgh Manor. We only could film at like certain portions of it because it was so massive. It was like, I think 23,000 square foot, and that's double the size what you're talking.
Yeah.
So there's so much ground to cover, man. But you guys got excellent footage. You guys are right there. Hey, Lexi, hey, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, we got super lucky because we had a couple of friends come with us, and they actually did most of the filming for us. So we were able to kind of focus on, doing our experiments and coming up with stuff, so we didn't have to worry about setting up cameras and all that. We had two extra people, and it was just so much better when you have those extra set of hands with you, you know.
Yeah, you guys, in my opinion, you got the Searchers crew was so vital in getting the Estes method really out there, man. Because like when I first came in, I didn't hear much about it until you guys really started doing the Estes experiment. Shane, you, Josh would talk about it. You guys would share your Estes. I remember you guys doing the trailer with the blindfold on. I'm like, this is so cool, man. Like
Yeah.
you guys really brought it out in your episodes with awesome, awesome evidence too. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah, yeah. So we'd actually kind of I won't say ripped it off, but we took it from the crew that did the Hellier documentary on Amazon Prime, the Newkirks,
Yeah.
and they did such an awesome job, and we watched that documentary, and we were just so like enamored by how well put together their documentary was, and especially that experiment, and so we were like, man, we've got to take this and just that it's like our go-to thing because they did such a good job when they filmed that documentary that we were like, man, this has got to be put in the Rolodex. We got to use this as often as possible.
Yeah, no, it's such an eerie experience, guys. If you don't know what the Estes method is, it's when you use the white noise from a spirit box plugged in through noise canceling headphones and a blindfold. Or now they have those the goggles. I haven't used
Hmm.
them yet. Yeah, there's different types of variations of the Estes method now, but primarily is with the blindfold, the headphones, and the SB7. I've tried it a few times. You get really lost in the white noise, man. You really
You
do. I
really
mean,
do. Yeah.
it's if you do it for so long, it's like it takes you over. You know, you're just sitting there and you're like, where am I when you come out of it? And I've been tapped on the shoulder during like
Yeah,
filming,
and
and
so
it's
see, and yeah, because for us, with us three, none of us really had like those psychic abilities. Which I mean, Shane's kind of tapping into some stuff, and the
yeah,
same with Josh. Like, but at the time when we were really like hitting the ground running, none of us had that, so we had to rely so much on equipment that we were having to come up with different ways to kind of simulate those abilities. So that's why we use so much like sensory deprivation stuff to try to give us a leg up.
it was so awesome, man. Searchers was so cool. So like when you went for 28 days haunted, how did that even work out for you guys? They come to you or did you guys reach out to them?
So we auditioned for it. It was kind of like it wasn't necessarily an audition as much as it was like an interview. So we kind of there was like they interviewed like 800 paranormal investigators total, I think, and they picked 8. And me and Shane were lucky enough to get picked, and we were even luckier to be put in the same location. And so they kind of knew we had like a little bit of a dynamic from searchers and all that, so it kind of made it easier for them to put us together. But yeah, yeah, it was like we did like actual interviews, and then we did like chemistry reads to make sure that we would get along with the people that we were there with, or make sure we had some sort of chemistry with it. So it was a pretty grueling experience. It actually took like I'd probably say like 4 or 5 months from the time we found out we were on the show till the time we actually flew out to film.
What are you serious? And then you guys actually did the full 28 days there too?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. So
did you
so
not have
we
phone
we we had to
access
keep
or
it a
anything?
secret. No, so we flew out. They flew us. The only thing we knew was where we were going, and we knew we were going to Denver. So of course, as soon as I found out I'm going to Denver, we're sitting there googling every location possible that it could be. Obviously, we didn't even the one that we went to, the Lumber Baron Inn, wasn't even like in my like. I had no idea this place even existed at the time. But yeah, we flew out, and then we were in the hotel room. The next morning, they come get us. They blindfold us. We hand in our phones. They actually drove us around the city for like 45 minutes. So we think we're driving, to another city. We were like a mile and a half from the hotel, but it was like the Lumber Baron Inn. But they drove around, filming and all that. And then they just dropped us off like a mile down the road to the actual Lumber Baron Inn. So it was like we thought we were like, forever away, but we were right there. It was crazy.
That is, man, that whole experience has had to be otherworldly too, like being a part of a Netflix. Was it a massive crew with you guys when you guys were there? Or
So that's the weird thing about this show is there was nobody there except for us three. There was no crew. There was behind the scenes, but like in the actual house, it was like Big Brother. Like the cameras were set up in the corners, and like they would follow us around and stuff. And like we had cameras, but like there was no crew on location with us. They were in a trailer like down the road, just making sure that nothing crazy happened. But we didn't have any sort of interaction with any cast or any other cast members or any crew during filming. It was just us three in that location the whole 28 days. Just us left to our, like, if we had to get groceries, we literally wrote them down on a sheet of paper, stuck it through like the mail slot of the front door, and then the next morning we'd have groceries. That was the extent of our interaction with the outside world.
I feel so isolated, man. At least you were there with Shane, because I'd just be like, oh, if I
Yeah.
was alone. Are you
Well,
serious?
see, the
But,
crazy, so like the crazy thing is, it was 2021 when we filmed. So
yep.
COVID had just like the lockdown had basically just ended, and then we volunteered to go back into isolation, basically. So it was kind of a weird thing where like we were kind of used to being isolated because of the pandemic, but at the same time, we had just gotten our freedom back, and then to turn around and just give it up voluntarily was kind of like, this is horrible. And then of course,
Yeah.
we turned our cell phones in, so like we couldn't talk to our family. I
I
mean,
was just about to say.
I missed my daughter's second birthday while we were filming because like like I was on location, so I couldn't call and tell her happy birthday or anything. So it was kind of rough that day filming. So,
Netflix loved picking on you, though, man. They used, they
dude,
used, they made you look like you. What? Why? Did they just need a storyline?
every good show has to have a villain, and so I just kind of got chosen. Like we all had to do psychiatric evaluations to make sure that we could handle, because the internet is not for like it's not a forgiving place. So they had to make sure that all of us could handle what was going to happen after the show came out. We would be able to handle the scrutiny and the hate and all that. So it was expected that one of us was going to end up being bullied and being hated, and it just so happened that I was the one that ended up being hated. So you live and you learn. So
Yeah, but you guys had a medium with you there, correct?
we did, yeah. Amy, yeah, she was, and
Yep.
like, and the crazy thing is like that whole sequence that they show in the TV show was like one day, but they stretched it out over the course of like a couple of episodes to make it look like it was like this big thing, but really it was like a day's worth of like arguing, and after that we're just like, all right, well, we'll figure something else out. And like they didn't show a lot of the stuff we actually did, like all the scrying and stuff. We all did it. Like I mean, we literally we were there for 28 days. We investigated for a minimum of like 6 hours a night. Every single night we were there. We did everything you can think of, and then some stuff that like we just made up, basically. Like because all the equipment that we had on location, that was it. We couldn't go
Yep.
get new equipment. We couldn't go to like go shop. We couldn't do
You're
anything. We
lost.
just whatever we yeah, we're locked in. So whatever we brought with us, that was all we had. So we just had to make do. So we were sat there, we were just making stuff up as we went, man. We are like, all right, well, maybe we could do this. And I mean, there's one fight that me and Shane got into that they didn't show, where he was suggesting that we do some experiment. And I'm like, man, it's the same thing. It's always going to be this, this, and this. I was like, who gives a shit at this point, man? I'm like, we're just doing the same shit.
Well, you guys were under the same roof for 28 days, dude. I mean, the same exact people, not seeing your family, how agitated that would be. Like me not being around anybody at all, I would be going insane, having
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
contact to the outside world. And, you're coming up with different ways of investigating. Did you have any personal experiences with the paranormal off camera that you can remember?
So like the thing is like I've done a lot of like private investigating where I haven't told anybody I was doing it. Like I took my oldest daughter with me, and like we've done some investigations and stuff. Like last year, me, her, and my oldest son, we went to Ashmore Estates, and
Yep.
that was actually their first actual investigation. They had a good time. It was Vince, the urban investigator. It was one of his events. I took my kids up there for that, so that was a pretty cool experience. And like I said, I didn't really tell anybody I was going other than the people that were going to the event. So I enjoy doing it more privately now, because like after 28 days haunted, I kind of had my fill of, being in the public eye and being out there. So
Yeah. So, like, have you ever, side topic, but have you ever, this is something that really stood out to me from a paranormal experience this year, being an investigator. I had my first experiencing a full-bodied apparition at the Palmer House. So have you ever seen one?
I have not seen a full body apparition, but I've seen like shapes and shadow figures and stuff like that. But I've
Yep.
never seen something that I would consider like a full bodied apparition.
I, so I was with Patty Negger at the Palmer House. I'm just to tell you a story quick, and I saw my first full-bodied apparition because I like went in as a skeptic believer, and I didn't. I was kind of been open, like prove me wrong. I saw shadow figures like kind of peek out around corners at Edinburgh Manor, Boyd House, and the Palmer. I've seen like shadow figures there. So I was down by the snowman room on the opposite end where the staircase where the bones were found there.
Uh,
And I saw someone walk past that looked like Patty Negri. And Patty told me she was going upstairs. So I go upstairs to tell Kelly Friesa's story, only to find out a dress that was sitting there that was exact to the T of what I saw downstairs. And it was Mrs. Palmer, literally
oh,
the owner of the
really?
Palmer House, that I saw as my first full bodied apparition. So, like, I didn't know if you've had this experience. I've been like sharing this experience with people because it's kind of mind blowing, man. It's a really,
Yeah, yeah.
it's an,
That's
so like, what experience to you, how like my apparition has stood out to me? What experience have you had that is your personal, like, oh my God moment?
um
Like,
So I'll say that when we investigated like Union Springs, Alabama, we went to the Poly Jail out there, which we've had events there, and we filmed an episode there. But that place was crazy because there was a moment when Shane and Josh kind of left me in the jail by myself, and like there was a certain cell where a guy he fell asleep smoking a cigarette and like burned to death in one of the cells, and like we were in there and like you could smell cigarette smoke while I was sitting in there, and I was like, "Where's that cigarette smoke?" I was like, "Maybe somebody outside is smoking," but obviously, it's like it's by itself. There's nothing else around, and we don't. None of us smoked, so like I kept smelling cigarette smoke anytime I'd get near that cell, and I was just like, "Man, what is going on?" But it was only around that one cell where that guy had burned to death.
that's crazy. No, because like I have a similar experience. Like when I was at Big Winnie General Store, Arnold Dahl came up to me. He's like, "Let me know if you smell my grandma's perfume." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "It's more of a floral scent." So I'm like walking behind him during the interviews, and I smell this whiff of a floral perfume, like not in our era at all. So like, it's really weird, isn't it? Like when you hear
It
these
is, yeah.
stories, and then it kind of just like shows how accurate the haunt is that the people are telling you, or the stories of you. Like, whoa, it's a different experience. So when you've investigated it all, have you ever experimented with a Ouija board?
So we've never done it on location. I have a Ouija board here at the house, but I've never done it on location. It's got such a negative like stigma to it, even though it's a tool like any other. People just have created this negative stigma with it, but we've never actually used it. But I've played with a Ouija board numerous times, just never on location.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because like I've always been eerie of them because people say that they can open portals and everything. So I've always been like skittish to touch things that I don't know
Hmm.
how to use. So I have to do it
The
with
thing
somebody
is,
that
yeah,
like that's somebody that actually
yeah,
knows how to
like I
use it,
said,
like using doing dowsing and
yeah,
all that. I can do dowsing rods now
right,
and do experiments with them, but I was like really studying it before I dove in because of the whole attachments and what people say
yeah,
about them. So I'm just kind of skittish. So I didn't know about that. So this is going to be
yeah. I
like a side.
really
No, go ahead, dude.
I was gonna say I really don't think that like it does anything different than like any other piece of equipment, in my opinion. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would argue otherwise, but like for me, as long as it's the intention that you have whenever you use it that I think will determine what effects and what kind of things are brought on
Absolutely.
with you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So this is a side topic, but it's important for investigators. All the investigators out there get it, especially when with you with filming. What snack do you bring on the road, Ray? What's your
so
hidden snack?
and Shane and Josh will attest to this, but I'm like a super clean eater. So like they get annoyed with me. So I bring like protein bars and like energy drinks, and like I'll bring like protein chips. And even when we go out to eat, if like we go to like a really bad restaurant, like I'll get like a salad, and they'll be getting like, this sloppy stuff. So like they used to get mad at me because like I eat so clean, and then they're over there just down in like Zaxby's and stuff, and I'm over there with like my little piece of grilled chicken, and chicken and rice and stuff like that. So, but now that I've kind of gotten away from that, now I find the best burger place in every city that I go to now, and I try to get like the best sloppiest burger I can find and just tear it up.
That's awesome, man. That's too cool. Uh, so why aren't you doing much in the paranormal anymore?
Well, between being a full time dad and full time working, it's hard to really find time to go out as much. Like I said, I went out last year to Ashmore Estates, and I've done a few closer to home, but it's just there's just I have a lot of stuff to do, and not a lot of time to do it. So when I do go out and do stuff, I have to be very selective and make sure that like it's going to be worth my time, and really now I only like to do it if I can bring one of my kids with me to try to get them into it. Because I know that like my time is shifting away, and it's their time to kind of get into it. So I've been trying to give them a chance to get more involved. So
Well, dude, if you ever want to come back to the field, it'd be with open arms from everybody. I just want you to know
yeah,
that, man. Everybody loves the Searchers crew. Everybody loves what you do. So, with open arms, if you ever want to come back, man, do it. I mean, look at this.
yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I talk to
what?
Shane. Yeah, I talk to Shane on like a weekly basis, and we're always talking about getting together and doing stuff. But now him and Josh are so busy with Beacon TV and
Oh man,
out there making quality content.
yeah.
That it's like I like the stuff they're doing now. So like I'm super stoked for all the stuff they got going on and all the stuff they're working on and all that. So like Shane will fill me in on everything. So like I know some of the secrets that not everybody knows. I'm not going to spill anything, but I just know that like for all the things that Beacon TV's already done, the stuff they're working on now is going to be blowing that stuff out of the water. So
No, it's a breath of fresh air, honestly, seeing all the fresh content ideas that's coming on to Beacon. I mean, there's so much talent going there. Josh Purvis is an incredible cameraman.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he's such a good guy, man. The shots he gets, oh, and him and Shane working together, awesome. Thanks for watching tonight, Shane. So I'm just very excited for everything that's happening in the paranormal world
Yeah, I
right
mean,
now.
just the fact that they got Cindy and Dave and Shane back together to film another TV show, that's more than enough for me to know that like whatever as a team like light years ahead of most others.
Oh yeah, no, the Holzer Files was awesome. I remember Shane underneath the train, and he hits his head and sees a
Yeah,
shadow.
yeah,
That was the scene
yeah. I
that
remember
kind
that.
of opened my eyes up. Like this is insane. So it's awesome to
Yeah,
see Beacon right now.
I always mess with Shane because if you watch the first episode of the Holzer Files, like you're introduced to Cindy and Dave first, so you hear both of them. Dave's got his northern accent and Cindy has her accent, and then you're like 15, 20 minutes into this episode, and then this country accent just comes out of nowhere, and it's Shane with his thick southern drawl, and it's just like so much worse because you've heard this northern accent from Dave the whole time, and then all of a sudden this country boy comes out of nowhere. So it's always funny watching that.
All right, guys. So I'm going to give a shout out to Julie Joe Larson Fast. She's a friend of mine, and she sponsored the show for the first run of interviews. She has her books called 100 Things to Do in Minnesota Before You Die. She is a writer, storyteller, public speaker, and a social worker. She lives right here in rural Minnesota. She attends all the events that I go to, and she's an established author and an awesome person to meet in general. So I highly recommend you guys checking out the 100 Things to Do in Minnesota Before You Die books. They're both available right now on Julie Joe Larson's Facebook page. You can check her up at Julie Joe Larson Author. And I want to thank you, Julie, for believing in me and supporting me for the podcast. So back to it. What was your favorite memory on the road with Searchers or the 28 Days Haunted? It doesn't even need to be paranormal. What's something that's just an awesome memory to you that's going to stand with you?
So I'll tell you this. There's a lot the people who are like old school like searchers fans will tell you that we had this like ongoing battle with Josh choosing the absolute worst Airbnbs when we would go out of town. He would like I don't know if he like looked for like the lowest star rating or what, but like we would stay in the sketchiest, like weirdest. We stayed in like a recording studio one time that was called Hotel California, And I was like, we're not ever going to leave here because I've heard this song a million times. I know what happens when you check into Hotel California. I was like, you've got us in this recording studio and we're stuck. We're here forever. And like, we stayed in like this weird trailer park that was like on the very cusp of like Louisiana and Texas. And like, it was just like, there was like deer heads all over the wall. And like, they were like literally like right above the bed. And I was like, man, this shit is wild. But yeah, it was like back to back to back. Every Airbnb we got was just like sketchier than the last. And we were just like, what are we doing? I was like, I'd rather get a hotel at this point. Like, these are like the sketchiest places on earth.
There's been some places that's very similar to me with some experiences like that, man. They're just unsettling if you don't have the right spot for you when you want to get cozy.
Yeah, I mean, imagine, you do
So,
this paranormal investigation for 8 hours and you're already like on edge, and then you go back to this
yes.
sketchy Airbnb and you're like, well, I feel safer sleeping at this haunted location than I do at this Airbnb.
So awesome. Uh, so what's the device you're always pulling out when you did the investigations first?
Ours was always we our go to was always to pull out the SB7 and just let that thing do. It's such a good piece of equipment and it's so versatile. You can do so many different experiments with it that it's like that's like the one piece of equipment that when people say they want to get into this, I'm like, just get an SB7 to start with. I'm like, it's going to take you a while to get used to it, but once you get used to a spirit box and especially the SB7, it's like it's got to be in your equipment. It's got to be there.
Yeah, I believe that the white noise really helps get the spirits to communicate with you. I've always had really good luck. Like with Big Winnie, I got them to get Arnold's name to come through his nickname, Grandpa Bino, which was his grandpa's nickname. I mean, multiple different things through the SB7. But I first had an experience with my first like XLS at the Boyd House. Those things are crazy.
Mm.
XLSs are seeing the 3D imagery because they were doing an Estes method and had an SLS, an XLS pointing outward and seeing like figures show up. It's just, have you used one of them before?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they didn't show it in the show, but we actually had one with us on 28 Days Haunted, and we got some pretty solid. Like we had like all kinds of. So all the evidence that we picked up was kept by Netflix, and some of it was like, I mean, it was some
Oh,
of the most compelling stuff that I've ever seen, and it's probably just buried in some vault that Netflix has somewhere in California. But yeah, I mean, you got to think it's 28 days worth of uh of evidence. We got, all kinds of EVPs, all kinds of evidence. I mean, it was just mountains of evidence that we pulled
and
out.
they won't let it go. That
No,
sucks, man.
it's buried in a vault now.
Oh, do you think they'll ever do another 28 Days Haunted?
If they do, they'll probably like redo the
Recap.
show, and yeah, yeah. I definitely feel like they'll recast it just because we all know what to expect. So there's no unknown for us this time around. What I always thought they would do would be like bring one person from each location in, somebody who has experience with a couple of people that don't, just because having that experience would probably make it easier for that person to kind of help. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
when we went in blind, it was like we didn't know what to expect. And for like the first few days, we were struggling. I mean, it's a lot to just go from being at home with your family to not having anybody else but the people that you're in that house with. And I mean, we had to lean on each other. And luckily me and Shane had each other. And I mean, we
Yeah.
kind of bonded with Amy pretty quick. So, we all still keep in touch. Like most of the cast now that we've met outside of filming, like I still keep in touch with a few of the people that was on the show that wasn't at my location, just because like this is not an experience that everybody can say they've done. So like we kind of bonded over that. So we're all kind of still a little tight knit. So
Yeah. No, oh man, because like it's doing an investigation for one night, guys. If you haven't investigated before and you have great activity, sometimes there's a thing called a paranormal hangover. So like after doing consecutive nights, I can't imagine, but 28 days of being under the roof of a haunted building with spirit activity, did you feel drained from that constantly throughout like the whole filming process?
yeah, so I think the biggest thing that people really didn't understand is like when you investigate, you leave. Like you leave the
Yep.
location and you go stay at an Airbnb or a hotel. We didn't
Okay.
leave. we were telling
Yeah.
these spirits to bust knock the walls down, and then we're like,
Yeah.
all right, well, good night, and then we were going and sleeping right down the hallway. Sometimes we were investigating in the room where somebody was sleeping that night. So you're sitting here and you're doing all this stuff, and then suddenly you're like, all right, well, we're going to bed. That's not how it works. Like the shit just doesn't turn off when you're ready for it to turn off. So there was a few nights where we had like some doorknobs moving and some stairs creaking, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess we're not going to sleep yet.
No, when a door slams on you, have you been around like a door when it slams shut out of nowhere and you're in the same room?
Yeah, within. So I'll tell you this: when we went to Sweet Springs, within 10 or 15 minutes of us being on location, one of the doors down the hall slammed, and these are like heavy, like kitchen doors. We all looked at each other and we're like, here we go. It's going to be one of those nights.
Yeah, no, that happened to me when I was at the Palmer house during the first filming. Room 17, which is Lucy's room. We were setting up gear in there, and it's like a tight rug on the door. So, like, if you can pin the door open and it's not moving whatsoever.
Mm.
So, like, setting up cameras, my back turns towards the door, and then just the door slams shut, man. No reason for it at all, and it makes it's the eeriest feeling in the world when something produces enough energy to slam a door of that much. Just it's caught on the carpet. There's no reason that should slam
Yeah.
shut when it's in, so, and that happened to Edinburgh Manor at me too. And another door slammed down the hallway. So it's just a weird. I don't know what's that.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of those. It's one of those things that when it happens, it's hard to like quantify what's actually happening at the time. So you're just kind of like you try to do that thing where you justify it any way you can, and then all of a sudden, like you're just like, well, there's I don't know how to explain it. So you just kind of hope for the best.
Yeah, no, man. What what did you say? Camping in tents. Oh, Brooke. All right. So, what is your dream location? Mine has always been Alcatraz. I've always wanted to go to Alcatraz. I've always wanted to investigate the Wabasha Street Caves here in Minnesota. It is an old mafia prohibition meetup area. I love the history. Is there any like top two spots for you? Like off the map is even fine, like unrealistic.
Right, right. So, I always wanted to go do like the catacombs in Paris. That's obvious. Places like I want to go somewhere where we're talking like hundreds and hundreds of years of history. Some of the places that have been war torn for years, and some of these places where civilization has been around. Like here in the U.S., we've only got 300, 400 years of like us, and then obviously Native Americans and stuff like that before us. But like other places in Europe and Asia and all that, they've got hundreds of thousands of years of history just setting there. So like places like in the UK and places like that, like I would love to go there. But like Alcatraz is one that I definitely would love to, which I think they're supposed to be reopening it as a prison now, so we might not be able to ever go there, but we'll see. So
Do you think they made it across when those three guys when they escaped?
I think maybe one of them did, but I don't
I
think all
know.
three of them made it.
I don't know.
Somebody had to sacrifice.
They're using somebody to get across.
Yeah, yeah. Somebody had to be sacrificed. I think one person was a life raft for the other two at least.
No, I've always been into the history. Like I've always wanted to go out to Gettysburg. I know they do like the Gettysburg Bash out there on the fields, I guess, but I've
Yep.
always
Yep.
wanted to experience what it feels like to be on like a Civil War battlefield, like all the lives that were lost there, the energy would just well, I went to Custer's Last Stand. I went to that location when I was a kid, but I was too young to really know
Hmm.
the what the feeling was. Have you been to like a battle zone? Have you been to a war ground
Yeah.
before?
So they're about an hour, maybe an hour 15 minutes away from me is the Andersonville Civil War like the old prison. So I've been there before, and it's you can just as soon as you start walking through there, you can feel it. Like it's right down there near Jimmy Carter's hometown in Plains, Georgia. But yeah, it's got the cemetery and it's got the prison itself. So I mean, it's got some intense stuff going on down there.
Are you out by Savannah at all?
So I'm about 2.5 hours away from Savannah.
Okay.
I'm like
Yeah. No, I got to.
I'm located like 2 hours away from Atlanta, 2 hours from I'm like literally like the very middle of the state of Georgia right now. So like I'm like geographically 2 hours from every major city in Atlanta.
That's how I am too. Yeah, it's like 2 hours from everything.
Yeah, it's like that thing from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I'm like a geographical oddity.
So, like a side topic that you guys don't know about, Ray and I are both involved in the music scene throughout our lives. I am currently going to be in a band named the Speakeasies that's going to be playing music here around the Brainerd Lakes area. What are you doing right now in the music scene, Ray? Are you doing anything, or can you tell
Um,
people what you used to do?
So I used to play drums, and I've kind of helped out bands doing stuff. But yeah, I kind of play every instrument, but I'm not good at any instrument. So
Oh,
like
come
I've played in a lot of local bands and all that. Like Josh was also in a local band around here, so we played. That's actually how me and Josh met originally. Was when we were
Oh, really?
teenagers. We both played music together. Yeah. So I've known Josh. Shoot, I guess probably close to 20 something years now. So.
Oh, you've known Josh longer than Shane?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me and Josh have been friends since I think we were probably 14 or 15, give or take. So,
What were you guys in, like the emo bands back in the day, like I was?
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we were in, man. We all had black hair and eyeliner and all that stuff. So,
Yes, let's go, dude. The skinny
yeah.
jeans, long hair,
Oh,
flipping it
yeah.
on the
Oh, yeah.
synchronized floor, you know. No, but now I'm like playing in a band with Seth Warwas is in the comments here. Hey, Seth. Yeah, we're like making a reggae, blues, funk mix. And it's weird how your music taste can shift so
Yeah.
far. You know what I'm saying? Like, growing up. Are you still listening
Oh,
to the
yeah.
same music?
Yeah, so I still listen to a lot of like metalcore and stuff like that, but depending on like the way I wake up, some days I wake up and I just want to listen to like super chill, like almost like like dad rock. It just depends on like what kind of mood I'm in. Like my music taste shifts with my mood. If I'm in a sad mood, I have to listen to like my Midwest emo. It really depends on what mood I'm in. Will dictate what playlist I'm on Spotify.
All right. Yeah. So you got to know if you're listening to like Story of the Year or if you're going to be
Oh
listening to
yeah.
like Next Sunday Emo Star of the Used.
I'm gonna tell you what, the new story of the year just dropped a new song like a couple weeks ago, and it is
It's so
probably one of the
heavy.
best. Yeah, it has probably one of their heaviest songs ever. So I was pretty impressed with it.
All right. So we're not going to get sidetracked here by Shane's comment. I'm supposed to ask you about pork chops. What's pork
Yeah,
chops?
so yeah, I'll tell you this story, and since he can't defend himself and make up no bullshit, I'll tell you the real story. So while we were filming, right, we had all this food brought in. Like they sent us like a grocery list, like an initial grocery list. So we all put down what we wanted initially when we first got there. So we put down a bunch of meat and all this stuff because I was like, man, I'll cook. I know how to cook. Shane doesn't know how to cook shit. Keep that in mind, right? Shane can't cook shit. So we get to this location. They had all this meat like packed up in the refrigerator. Well, have you ever put like meat on top of other meat where it kind of like imprints on it and kind of changes
Yeah.
it? It'll give it like the brown marking where the other meat was setting on top of it, but it's not
Yeah.
bad. It's just like an imprint of like the packaging. Shane was like, "Oh, this meat's going bad." I'm like, "It's not going bad. It's fine. We'll just cook it today and it'll be no big deal." He's like, "No, if we don't, this meat's gonna kill us if we eat it." And I'm just like, "Man, fuck it." So I like threw it out, and I'm like throwing all this meat out because it has like these little brown spots on it. They're not even like real brown spots. They're just like layers of packaging. And he's like, "No, it's bad." And I'm just like, "Man, whatever." I'm like, "You know what? It's not my money anyway. I don't care." So I'm like throwing out like steaks and like pork chops and all this shit. But yeah, he's complaining all the time about food, but he didn't cook nothing. He complained about I made him pancakes in the morning. I cooked him eggs every morning. I made dinner for everybody, and he would complain about everything. It was like I had a wife while I was there. And
You
he
probably
can't
feel
he's
so good
I
saying
bet
this
he
with him
he's
not
in
being
the
able to stop you.
Yeah, exactly. Usually this is when he starts interrupting me and he's like, "No, that's not what," and no, but the truth is that he complained the whole time about my cooking, but he ate that shit every night and he told me how good it was. So don't believe nothing Shane says. He's full of shit. He loved every minute of it.
You say wow, wow, wow. Hey, so like,
Yeah.
were you guys like cooking during 28 Days Hotter? Did they bring you
Yeah.
meals?
No, no, no. So we had to cook everything, and Shane doesn't know how to cook, so he relied on me to cook for him. When I didn't cook for him, all he ate was cereal and like peanuts and shit like that because he couldn't cook. So he would make a bowl of cereal for dinner if I didn't cook anything. So I was having to cook every night because I felt bad because he'd be over there eating Cocoa Puffs. But yeah,
You
I
mentioned
made
you
us.
can't cook 10 times so far. So you're making this blatantly known. You
Yeah,
can't cook.
Either Shane can't cook or Shane pretended he couldn't cook. He was either doing that like willfully, like pretending like he couldn't cook. And so, yeah, he didn't cook the entire 28 days. I cooked for him every night. So,
All right, I'm
and
going to give
his,
a shout out quick before we keep the conversation going on the pork chops. I'm going to give a shout out fast to Hawk Horvath Spiritual Consulting. She is an awesome person, a psychic medium, a speaker here in Minnesota. She also does the tour with Hawk Guides here. She also is the founding member of After Hours Paranormal. I want to thank Hawk so much because she's starting to speak at conventions around here in Minnesota. She is doing an awesome job. I've heard all about it, and I highly recommend you guys check out Hawk Horvath, Horvath on Facebook. She has multiple different things going on, guys. And thank you again, Hoff, for believing in me. And back to the discussion on the pork chops. So you were the one cooking during 28 Days Haunted.
yeah, absolutely. I cooked every single day. So we had like the Lumber Baron Inn is like a bed and breakfast too. So like they had like a nice industrial kitchen, industrial dishwasher. Like I mean, it was like the whole setup. So like we had all the food brought in, and I would go in there and I'd whip it up every morning. Like I made pancakes, I'd make like eggs, I would make bacon, all that stuff. Like every morning I'd get up because I couldn't sleep in. Like I had a hard time. Like we'd be investigating till like 3 o'clock in the morning. I would try to force myself to sleep, but like the sun would come up and it was like there's no going to sleep because there was no curtains or nothing. So I was like, man, I got to get up. So I'd get up like an hour before everybody else. So it was like I had to do something. So I would just cook for everybody.
Breakfast ready, dear.
Yeah. And then he'd come downstairs like an hour later and make a coffee. And then half the time he wouldn't even eat my food because it was cold or he didn't like it or blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, man, me and him argued like every day. Me and Amy argued like 2 times in the whole 28 days. Me and Shane argued every single day.
That is awesome, man. Oh, well, apparently, now you guys are just blowing shots. You guys need a ring in here right now. This is cook me a pancake the size of his big ass head. Yes,
Yeah,
that's what he just said.
no. So he said he wanted pancakes. So like I could only find like one big pan. So instead of making like five little pancakes, I made him one big ass pancake. I was like, just eat the one pancake. And it's the same as five little pancakes. He made it out like this one pancake was like I made him 15 of these giant ass pancakes. It was just one pancake that was the equivalent of five little pancakes. He didn't understand that shit. He made it out like I made some ridiculous, like giant pancake, like the world's largest pancake. It was just a pan-sized pancake.
It was probably a damn good pancake too.
It was because it was a protein pancake. It was a Kodiak cake pancake, and not everybody can cook those that well because they're hard to cook.
Oh, so this is where you get the crap for the protein because you're bringing the
Yeah,
protein with your flapjacks.
yeah. This is where I introduced him to like Catalina Crunch cereal and some like the habanero barbecue almonds, all that stuff. Man, he had never heard of none of that stuff.
So
So
yeah,
he's
you eat the protein based foods and differently and making up the flapjacks for him. See, acts like a
yeah,
wife.
yeah,
This is all.
he is. He was literally like my wife the whole time we were there. I don't see how his wife puts up with his stuff all the time, but she's a better woman than I was.
I think he's calling you the wife though.
Yeah, because he treated me like a wife because he didn't appreciate nothing I did for him.
When you were working with them on Searchers, did you do any of the filming? Were you a part of the camera aspect of it? What was your
Yes,
role?
28 Days Haunted. I was like the main like because we didn't have a camera person. So we just had like a backpack that had like a transmitter that would send all the footage directly to the Netflix trailer. And I was normally the one holding the camera. And then with searchers, we would all kind of take turns. Whoever was not, in the experiment would be the one that would hold the cam. But a lot of times we would just kind of set up like static cameras somewhere so that we could all be involved with searchers. But with 28 Days Haunted, I would throw this backpack on that had this huge wireless transmitter in it that weighed like 35 pounds. And we would just be walking around this place all night long with this huge backpack on.
And that would send a signal right to their truck.
Yeah, so it was like it
That
was
is
wireless,
insane.
and they had a truck that was out there on the street somewhere, and it would literally just send the footage directly to them, where they could watch it live while they were like recording their own copy of it for later. So they were actually like they were watching everything live from a trailer, and the same thing with like Aaron and Tony. They were watching everything live as it was happening, so like we had to have that wireless transmitter that would send it to them where they could, be watching what we were doing without actually being in there. Cause Aaron Sagers and Tony Spera had their own little area where they were watching all the teams at the same time that we were
Yeah,
actually
that
filming.
massive
So
screen
yeah,
thing.
that
I saw
huge
it was
that
like
yeah.
they have like cameras in the corner of each room when they were doing that, right? When you guys were
Yeah.
filming.
Yeah. So it's weird because like I hadn't met Aaron before that. Like we had known each other, but we had never met in person. So it's like for our first like meetup to be like after he had watched me sleep and take a shower and investigate for like 28 because there was cameras in our bedrooms. So like we had a camera in there and my shower was in my room. So like when I go to shower, like I'm just there, there's no I'm there. Like, there's probably 4.5, 5 hours of footage of me just butt naked that Netflix has in a vault somewhere too. Because like
Oh,
I'd get out of the shower and I'd forget, and I'd just be walking through the room just completely naked.
so like when you guys were doing, that's so uncomfortable feeling though, knowing that
Yeah.
footage is out there.
After you once you start thinking about it again, you're like, well, it's over now. And then when we actually met the crew after filming was done, I knew that these people had seen me naked for sure. Same thing with like we had to put our own microphones on, because we didn't have anybody there, so we'd have to put our own like lab mics on. And if you'd forget to turn it off when you went to the bathroom, they could hear everything. So like, you're peeing and doing whatever, and like if your mic's still on, they're hearing it. They know what you're doing in there. So you better make sure you remember to turn it on and off when you're supposed to.
So like back to searchers, it was just you three doing everything.
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, like every once in a while, we would have like an extra person come out and help us, but I'd say 90 to 95% of the time it was just me, Shane, and Josh with all of our equipment.
It's a lot of work, man. So thank you to you guys for doing that. Like I've done like the chasing thing, but you guys had like a bigger aspect of what you guys are doing, higher quality, and you guys just absolutely knocked it out of the park, knowing that it was like the three of you
and
primarily.
and like
That's
we would
incredible, man.
all try to like edit parts of the whole to help each other out. But man, I know and like anybody who's ever filmed anything knows editing is like such a grueling and
Oh,
painstaking for like the doing and the filming. That shit is so fun.
yeah.
But then when you get done and you realize now you got to go in there and you got to line up the audio to the video, and it's just you just know that it's going to be like weeks of just torturous stuff. Like people like Dakota that have been doing this shit since the beginning, who just knock it out of the park. Like I tip my hat to them because I hated every minute of editing.
Oh man, like I enjoyed doing it, but it's grueling because everybody's like an hour a minute, an hour a minute. That's what they say to me. But it feels even
Yep.
longer because like I was doing raw documentary footage or whatever. But even doing that, you're taking up to 48 hours. Well, not 48 hours, but you're taking 2 days worth of investigation footage, literally breaking it down into an episode, weighing out all the audio files, all of the different cuts, everything, like adding in the effect, like the
Yeah.
text, everything. It's a tedious work. So like you understand that. That's kind of like a relief to talk to somebody
Yeah.
that's not editing because it's
And see,
it's
that's
definitely
what's so mind blowing about 28 Days Haunted, because like we were filming 24/7 for 28 days, and it was like probably 50 to 60 cameras in there. So the editing team for that show had to sit there and go through 24 hours of like, or 28 days of footage of 24 hours a day for three different teams on 60 to 70 different cameras, and then condense that down into 3.5 hours of like usable footage that they put on the
Yeah.
show. So like, I mean, I think I added up. I think it's like 1,400 hours per camera per team, and they somehow condensed that down to 3.5 hours of like, usable stuff. So I give the
Watchable
team at
footage. And then
Netflix, yeah,
in that time, Ray, they found a way to pick at you.
yeah, yeah. They literally they spent that entire time picking out the worst things that I did in
No.
28 days. 1,400 hours I spent on location, and they picked out the 45 minutes of me being an asshole and made that the central plot of our show. And then I had to get dragged on Reddit and TikTok and Instagram and everything. Like I just
Was
got
that,
drugged through the mud all
was
because of this 45 minutes of like negative stuff. So,
and that's probably international hate though.
oh,
You
well,
know?
what's crazy is like I had people from other countries that loved me. And then I had people from other countries that like I still like I know when it's like spooky season because like I'll start getting like hate mail on my Facebook or on my Instagram where people will find the show during the month of October and it'll start trending on Netflix again. And then all of a sudden I'll get an influx of followers, and then I'll get an influx of like DMs where people be like, "You're such a fucking asshole," and yada yada yada. And I'll be like, "Oh, well, I guess the show's trending again," because it'll be like they're like, "You treated that girl like shit," and I'm like, "Well, I can call her real quick if you want me to, and you can like tell her that I'm mean to her because like we're still friends. Like I talked to her, so like." That's what people don't understand. They make it out like we all like hated each other, but like me, Amy, and Shane were like, I mean, we formed we bonded. We were stuck there. So we had no choice but to. I mean, it's like if you're anybody who's ever lived with someone knows that you don't get along 24/7.
Oh
Now,
yeah, absolutely.
so when you're stuck and you have nothing else to do but spend time with that person, you're going to argue. So the fact that they only had 45 minutes of usable arguments should tell you just how little we actually argued.
Yeah, hey, that's a good point, actually, isn't it? Let's see. Those DMs are for me, Shane says.
Yeah, he does send me DMs all the time, and most of them are hateful. So
Did they prep you for that though? Netflix, did they tell you that there was going to be like hate coming at you potentially
yeah, yeah,
from?
yeah, yeah. So they actually made us all do psychiatric evaluations before we went, and we had to talk to a psychiatrist to make sure that like we could handle like make sure we didn't have like lingering like mental health issues that would like make it like hurt us after the show came out if somebody were to attack us on social media. So like, I mean, some people took what we did on that show and kind of created a new narrative with it. And I mean, Shane knows what I'm talking about, but some people kind of took the argument and created something more out of it that was a little far fetched. But yeah, they kind of prepped us for that to where like they were like, yeah, we need to make sure these people can handle like being hated. So
Yeah, no, I'm really
we
curious.
had all.
I was just curious if you guys that like everybody involved, because I'm friends with some of them on Facebook, like if they just went through a rough time from that, like 'cause just being
Yeah,
on
and then
international.
for me, there was a lot of investigators out there that kind of I will say that like when the show first came out, there was a lot of people who were like, "Oh, it should have been me," or "It should have been me." They weren't as
Yeah,
thrilled that it was certain people on the show, and I mean, nobody really knew who I was other than
yeah,
the people who had followed Surgers. So of course they're like, "Who's this asshole?" They were like, "That could have been me, and I would have made the show 10 times better." So like you had that part of it, and again, you had the people that said that I was treating Amy differently because she was a woman. But like the truth is, like I treated Amy the same as I treat everybody that I'm working with. And of course we're gonna have disagreements. Like there's no there's no place in the paranormal for like misogyny and like treating women any differently because like women already have to deal with a bunch of extra BS in this field because there's so many people out there that use their position as a way to like corner women in this field, and there's so many people out there that like think that like any woman in this field is fair game for them. So like I don't ever want any woman to feel like I would ever cross that line. So like I treat everybody the same. And like I've seen
Mhm.
it firsthand where certain people have used their position to try to manipulate women. So like I was very adamant on that not being the narrative whenever the show came out.
Absolutely. No, Ray, I really want to thank you for coming out, man. Like, I've always been a big fan of Searchers, and you were the first one to come to mind when I thought about kicking this off because I've always chatted with you and having music similarities and being involved in the paranormal field. You guys were a big inspiration to me. So I want to say thank you to you and the Searchers for, allowing me to be a paranormal investigator because without you guys, I probably would not be doing this. So you
Man,
guys
yeah, dude,
are, I'm a fan. I gotta say,
dude,
Searchers. I
I
love what you guys do from the bottom of my heart. And do you have anything big planned for the future? Or you think you'll ever come back to the field? Do you?
So I've talked to a few people, and there's some things that have been kind of in the works. I don't know if anything is concrete yet, but like if somebody were to approach me and say, "Hey, we're filming this or we're doing this and we want you to come out," like I'm always down to try to work something out with anybody that wants to do it. So like I've never no is never like a hard no. I'm always like I always leave the door open, but like I said, it's just got to be the opportunity's got to be right and the timing has to be right for me at this point. But otherwise, I'm always down to do anything with anybody.
Awesome. All right, man. I want to thank you so much for coming on here tonight. And again, thanks again for being the first guest on the Portals and Pathways podcast.
Man, I appreciate you thinking about me, man. This was awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, man. I'm gonna let you go and I'll finish this up.
All right, sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the first edition of my podcast with Ray Causey from Searchers and 28 Days Haunted. It was an absolutely awesome conversation. I have one more sponsor I need to thank. I need to thank Solitary Spectre Hunter, Diana Atkins. She is one of my friends. I could not thank her enough for believing in me and sponsoring this podcast. She just released a compilation video of all of her investigations on the Solitary Spectre YouTube. I highly suggest you check it out because Diana is an awesome investigator, a great person, and she is now vending across Minnesota. So again, Solitary Spectre Hunter. I also have Julie Jo Larson, the author, and I have Hawk Horvath Spiritual Consulting with me tonight as my sponsors. And thank you again, guys, for joining me on my table of discussion tonight with Ray Causey for the first ever Portals and Pathways podcast. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys next week with Sam Beltrusis. Take care, guys.